Hello, what is up, everyone? I am Will. We're here with the first episode of the Off the Ground podcast, which is a podcast based in New Zealand esports and gaming. And today I have as a guest Dave from Standing Fest, which is the premier fighting game community.
I like that word.
What would you call it? Body group?
Community? I like community.
Yeah, right. So just tell me a bit about yourself, Standing Fierce, how it came to be, why you thought was a, why'd you start Standing Fierce essentially?
Well, obviously before doing all this, like majority of people who get into things that they enjoy, I was a player first, so I played a lot of video games, fighting games especially. I know that there's a whole generation of New Zealanders who grew up at the fish and chip shops, at the dairies, at the laundromats. If you're from Auckland, even Hamilton had a youth funds as well. So I met a lot of people doing that, and I saw that there was a group of players, and maybe I'm just ultra biased, but I just assumed that New Zealand players can compete at a top level. I always feel like that, and there was a forum. There was a small forum, and there were a group, and they used to run. They held a few tournaments, and then they stopped running tournaments after they'd built a community. And I felt like, that's kind of a wasted resource. There are a lot of people that were putting in a massive amount of time and effort into something that they really enjoyed, but there was no way for them to showcase that. And I felt like if I wanted something like that, then I should just do it.
Yeah.
Until someone better came along. But that was like 8 years ago, so no one better's come along yet.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask, is how long has it been running? So you said 8 years.
Yeah.
In what capacity was it before? Like right now, esports it's a thing. It's a very big thing globally, right? Like I constantly say it's a buzzword at the moment. But what was it back then? What was the fighting game community in New Zealand back before, when you were a player?
Was the biggest tournament we had back then before esports was the word, was just someone jumped on the forum and just said, we're going to host a Street Fighter 4 tournament, because that's when the game first came out. If you want to come and play, just come and play. There was no big advertisements taken out. There was no YouTube videos about it. There's nothing. You were either there or you weren't. And then people just turned up through word of mouth. But even before then, we all used to meet up at the arcade on Friday afternoon, Friday night, or lunchtimes. If you were studying in the city or you worked in the city, a lot of business suit gamers used to come out. So that was before there was a prize. The only prize was being the best.
Yeah.
There was no but now, man, esports is crazy.
Yeah. There's a bit to unpack. I mean, you mentioned a forum. That's like ancient language nowadays, right? But the arcade. So what I find fascinating, right, is arcade culture.
Yeah.
It's essentially you're living the actual moment in game. You're head to head, throwing hands across from one another, right?
Yeah.
What for people that obviously never got to walk the floors of U-Funds, describe to me, what U-Funds was, where it was located.
Yeah.
What put us in the middle of U-Funds? So
U-Funds used to be at the basement level of the Mid-City complex, which was off of Queen Street in Auckland. You would walk down probably about 15 stairs. But before you got there, you would hear all of the games playing, not just fighting games, but you'd hear everything. You'd hear sticker machines, you'd hear racing games, you'd hear the Daytona Rolling Start song playing. You'd walk in, there'd be and then you'd obviously, there would be a lot of groups, and you could head over to the fighting game corner, which had Tekken, Street Fighter, actually all the Street Fighters, King of Fighters, any fighting game. And then it's kind of like it's kind of like a school sports tournament. you know, when you get there in the morning, you get off the bus, and there's the other school, and then there's you
Yeah.
know, there's that school, there's that school, there's that
There's
school.
that certain
Yeah.
something in the air, right?
Yeah, and you
Yeah.
and then without knowing it, someone's like, "Oh, that school's the best school." When you're down there, it's like that guy's the best player, and he hasn't even played yet, and there's two guys playing who are really good.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of like that. Where like the anticipation, we are like, "Who's the best?" But there's that kind of secondhand knowledge of they're the best.
Yeah, yeah. Um, I want to also dive into, we use the term, fighting game community or FGC as like a blanket term, right?
Yeah,
But under that is multiple titles,
Yeah.
different Street Fighter, Tekken, Marvel vs. Capcom, right? There's a whole bunch of other ones that come out on a yearly basis, but those are kind of the staple three, right?
yeah, yeah.
What, say if you come up against, top player of your region in Street Fighter, how much of their skill set is going to transfer to Tekken and then vice versa, or to Marvel vs. Capcom? Like, explain to me what it actually takes to play these games at a high level, and once you're good at one, can you just jump straight into another one and be just as good?
It's dependent on the player, because a lot of players prefer to only play one game, like not because they can't. It's just because they just prefer one. So there's like two groups of top tier players. You have the players who are predominantly one game only, and then you have the multi game specialists who are just who can just pick up something that's in the game, a mechanic in the game, or how the game works off the bat without putting too much time in it.
Yeah.
So then for them, transferring skills across is pretty much going from like playing basketball to rugby of the passing. You
Yeah.
know, like you've got your
Yeah.
passes, you've got your hand-to-eye coordination, you've got like that stuff is transferable. But then you have the other players who are specific to that one game, and they don't want to change because they just don't want to play anything else.
Yeah, yeah. It's I always find it fascinating comparing the skill set of your traditional sports, rugby, soccer, to an esports player at a high level, right? What explain to me what skill sets are parallel?
The biggest one, I think, and a lot of people kind of throw like a big blanket over it, is like the mental game.
Yeah.
So like when I say mental game, I mean I'm not just talking about knowledge of the game. I'm talking about like mid game shot calling. When in basketball, when they're running a pick, do they then they're not stuck in running that same play. Like they can switch it up. They can either pass it aside, they can run straight down, just like with rugby. Do they want to just keep running, or like what's the best one? I guess the best one would probably be like American football would probably be a really good one, because they can call audible after the plays,
Right.
So you can switch out the play. Whereas like with fighting games, it's never the same. It's always changing.
Maybe it's the bias in me bringing this up, but I always feel the mind games and fighting games specifically, not as well as like esports titles in general, but fighting games specifically, just in the moment, in a split second,
Yeah.
how many like I guess plays are being thought about, and then the time executing those plays,
Yeah.
but then also the follow up of that.
Yeah.
So like it's all in under a second. So you got to figure out what you need to do in a split second,
Yeah.
execute, and then also think 2-3 steps ahead. I guess it's kind of like chess in a sense, right? That's another one. That's another common one that everyone competes.
It's true though, because coming from a player's point of view, what you want to do is you always want to put the other person in a situation that they're not comfortable in.
Yeah.
But then you always have to think, once I get them there, how do I keep them there?
Yeah, it's could talk for hours on the actual like thought process behind it all.
Like that's I think that's one of the biggest things, like the just in understanding the flow of a match as well as the flow. Like, is it my turn? Is it your turn? Am I winning or are you winning?
And those obviously all change based on the title, right?
Yeah.
And is that due to the mechanics of the game?
Yeah, the mechanics of the game, and if it's whether it's 2D or 3D as well. So Tekken being 3D, Soul Calibur being 3D, but then there are also other things to take into account as well. Like some games are more rushdown heavy. So rushdown meaning there's constant offense, so the other person's always attacking the other player.
In someone's face.
Yeah. And then you have other games with such as Street Fighter, which a lot of people think is fast, but it's not. It's actually quite slow. So Street Fighter is more about spacing, owning the area around your character and the area around the other character. So it's dependent on the title.
Cool. And we're talking about the mainstays in fighting games. Street Fighter, Tekken, Marvel vs. Capcom. The release schedule.
Yeah.
You say you mentioned Street Fighter 4 before. That's 4 Street Fighters.
Yeah.
So per title, how long does it stay around? How different do they get? How does that all work?
It's kind of funny because, like, saying Street Fighter 4, which came after 3 and 2, it's like there were a whole bunch of updates before we got to 4. Before we even got to 5. So Street Fighter 4 came out at the end of 2008, and then there was 8 years from then until Street Fighter 5. But in between that time, there are 5 updates. So Street Fighter 4, Super Street Fighter 4, Super Street Fighter 4 Arcade Edition 2012, and then Ultra Street Fighter 4.
Yeah.
And then Street Fighter 5.
And with each of those, they're like the major updates, right? That's what you're considering, right? So as a player, when they update it, what's going on? Are you going back to square one? Do you have to figure out all the small changes and all that type of stuff?
Pretty
right?
much. Like a lot of characters go through big changes, and stuff that would work in the previous version wouldn't work anymore. Because as well as that, they'll introduce like a new mechanic, or they'll change properties on a move. So the fireball going from being really fast to really slow changes how you control the space. So then that changes how you have to understand. And
how you play,
and
how everyone else plays, right?
Yeah.
So, you essentially have to just relearn the game from start to finish, in a sense, okay, we've skimmed over all kind of the basics of fighting games, I guess. What I want to get into is the New Zealand esports landscape.
Yeah.
So, obviously, you're standing fierce.
Yeah.
You are the guys to go to for fighting games in New Zealand. Any title, but you exist in a larger bubble, right?
Yeah.
There's so many other titles and so many other genres. What is your current view? Well, where does Standing Fierce sit in that bubble? And what's your raw thoughts on esports in New Zealand?
I think esports in New Zealand it's in a weird spot at the moment, from coming from what I've seen, and where I've kind of seen it go up and then come all the way back down, and then go up and then go all the way back down again. There's a weird disconnect at the moment between certain groups, I think, and I feel like there needs to be like a big sit down, and everyone comes to the table with what they have and what they can provide.
Yeah.
And like for Standing Fierce, even though we only do fighting games, I always keep an eye on what the other scenes are doing. So like, the MOBA guys like Dota and League of Legends, and the Call of Duties, Counter-Strike. But like, I don't know, it's hard to say it without like tooting my own horn, but like, there isn't really anything there for them at the moment. But that's not like a dig at them. It's just like, there has to be something.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like I'm somewhat neutral on viewing kind of just esports in general in New Zealand, but I feel Standing Fierce specifically serves what is also another buzzword, the grassroots lane. Which, I don't know, does it, like, what do people mean when they say, Standing Fierce, grassroots events? What are they talking about?
I think they're just talking about like kind of the level that it's at, where it's not, the production isn't over the top. It's not like a show. It's more like just a gathering, like a tournament. Yeah. There's no big like flashy lights or anything. It's just kind of, at most we'll have a projector or like a big TV for everyone to like watch, and in-house audio for like the hype guy to kind of hype it up.
So it's right in saying that it's more, you have this community, you're providing for them as kind of just through your connects, right?
Mm.
You're kind of sourcing everything from who you know,
Yeah.
and gathering a crew and team that actually want to invest time
Yeah.
for like the development of the scene, right?
Yeah, definitely volunteer, like heavy
Yeah.
scene.
Do the other lane to this discussion, right?
Yeah.
Is the bright lights, big stages,
Yeah,
kind of producing events that you'd probably see, on TV or like you'd see in North America and Europe. These big spectacles, right?
yeah.
Have you tried to cross paths with the groups doing it in New Zealand at all?
A couple of years ago, we did work on something. It didn't really go that well, which is, I guess, I put it down to teething problems.
Right.
It's one of those things where you have a passionate group coming up, or like meeting with a group who are probably genuine, but not as passionate, and it's always hard. Like gamers own what their community, like they have a sense of ownership. So when someone comes along, it's hard for them to give up their ownership.
Yeah, you definitely have to spend a lot of time winning the gaming audience over, for sure. Do you think in the future a partnership can still bloom in a sense, or is it forever going to operate in kind of two lanes?
I think it needs to. Like that's the only way forward. Well, but I know that there are people who aren't on that train of thought yet.
They're just not there, right?
Yeah.
For whatever reason they need to serve. They're just not there. All right. Let's go up on a high note here. We'll start talking about standing fierce, and I guess I got to give it context, right?
Yeah.
Fighting game events or fighting games in the esports spectrum, right? They're kind of considered, even though they're selling out the Mandalay Bay in Vegas, right?
Yeah.
Like every year, Evo is the Evolution Championship Series. That's like, they tout it as the Super Bowl of fighting games, right?
Yeah.
So every year, if you're a fighting game player, you want to go to Evo and enter those open brackets and test your skills, because the world's best are there across all games, right?
Yeah.
Have you ever been to Evo?
Oh yeah.
Sorry,
I mean,
what was that like?
crazy. It's it was a weird feeling because I'd been watching Evo since like 2003.
Yeah.
So I went in 2016, and the I guess the atmosphere it's hard to describe, just because there's nothing like it in New Zealand.
Yeah, for sure. What have you been to a UFC event?
No.
Or large sporting event?
Oh, I've been to like like Warriors games and like some of the All Blacks games up at Eden Park, and
So it's pretty close.
it's
That the electricity's in the air. You can
I
cut
think
it with a knife type of thing.
I think there'd be more electricity at an NPC rugby game where the fans are diehard. I find like at like the big commercial games like that, there are fans, and then there are just people who are there because they got a free ticket or it's something to do.
Yeah.
Whereas at like provincial rugby, everyone's there because that's your team, and the other team's coming to take your stuff. Like that's what, that's what Evo feels like. It's just like everyone is there for one thing. Like no one's there to tag along. No one's there just because everyone's there because they want to play that game against those people, and they want to be the best at it.
Yeah, I mean, I've been to a whole bunch of sporting events, UFC events, rugby games, soccer games, and sitting in a fighting game crowd and watching that is just on another level, because it's reactions on hit. Like every single hit, that whole stadium is up on their feet, just going ape shit.
Yeah,
it's I definitely, whenever I am talking to diehard rugby heads or diehard soccer heads, I always
soccer,
soccer's another one, right? That's crazy. I'm always, they'll be interested in kind of, esports gaming, what is it, I'll always recommend a fighting game event on that scale. So go to an Evo if you can. Even if you don't know what Evo is, you don't even know how fighting games are played or what any of the titles are, go there on finals day and just sit in the crowd and you will be converted.
Yeah.
Because if you're not converted by obviously what you're watching, that you then learn, and you might go away and play, you're talking to the person next to you and
Yeah,
they're
it's
educating you on the
infectious.
matter, right?
It's
It's just unreal. So I'd definitely recommend that to anyone. But did you enter?
yeah. So
How did you do?
I did all right. I made it out of the first pool on winner's side, and then I played in the second pool, and then I lost my first game. Then I won two, and then I lost the last game to make it out. But at the time, I kind of wasn't expecting to do that well. I was just there for the experience. But it's the cool thing though for me was I picked up a lot of tricks for events here as well. Just like
In terms of what, playing or just running?
just running events.
Running events.
Yeah, it was kind of weird to be a player again after I had been doing so many tournaments, and then when I got there and then I got to play again, I was like, oh, that's an interesting. Like they would do something, but because I was being a player only, I'd be like, oh, that's how people must feel when I do that. All right, so I'll change that. You know, like so it was a cool experience, and man, I wish I could do it again. So.
Do you have any plans
This
year?
Planning to go to Combo Breaker.
Yeah, Combo Breaker. So to put it into context, Combo Breaker is essentially, how would you tout it? A tournament by fighters for fighters.
Yeah,
Fighting game players for fighting game players. It's crazy. Just imagine an entire golf resort and every hallway and side room has people playing video games.
Yeah,
And like we mentioned before, it's also a 24-hour venue.
yeah.
So you can rock up at 4 a.m.
Yeah.
and just get games in any title. It's mental. But what I was going to quickly jump into is that you learnt a bit about, when you attended Evo, you learnt a bit about running tournaments.
Yeah.
What exactly, what's the lead up to a standing fierce event? How many tournaments do you have in the calendar year?
Yeah.
And what's your lead up like? And how is it structured on a Friday, Saturday, and Sunday?
So leading up to the event itself, like throughout the year, you mean, like, or just
Well, yeah.
on-
How
on
many
the weekend?
events?
So-
How many events do you have in 2020?
So this year, Standing Fierce are going to be helping 3 other events. So there's one down in Dunedin, one in Hamilton, one in Wellington.
Yeah.
So we so with Dunedin, we're going to help them with streaming. One of the it's kind of like it's like a little tangent, but like one of the main things with us helping them is that eventually they don't need us.
Yeah,
help
exactly. You're building up, smaller
Yeah.
smaller communities
So
around the country.
so
Right?
Expansion NZ are the guys down in Wellington with Jackson, and he's almost at that point.
Yeah.
You know, like he's
Yeah.
he's pretty much there. I think this year might be the first time he's gonna do everything, like all of them. Hamilton, so that's the Waikato Arena Rampage guys. Hamilton Fighting Game Community. They're already at that point. I think we might be helping them with the stream. Like it's the more technical aspects that we help them with now.
Yeah.
And down in Dunedin, it's we're going to be helping with the stream as well.
Yeah.
So
And Dunedin, that event down in Dunedin's the first this year, right?
yeah.
So how'd that? What happened there?
Normally, our first event is in Christchurch, but the guys down in Christchurch decided to have babies last year, so so
They're taking some time.
So they're on maternity leave.
Yeah.
And the guys down in Dunedin were like, "Oh, we can't let South Island not have an event."
Right. So they saw essentially the gap.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Like
obviously.
their plan was only to do it this year, and then we go back to Christchurch next year.
Right.
So
Is that they'll be totally dependent on how well it goes, I assume?
nah, I think they just
Oh, they just want to run with
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Oh, okay, all the power to them.
they kind of they enjoy playing, but they just know that there's a gap.
Yeah,
And
they want to fill it.
yeah,
So that's how many events you have in,
Yeah.
2020. So you yourself, you're an event organizer.
yeah.
How far before the date that you've set are you planning? What are you planning? Like I know you've mentioned streaming. Streaming's a very big element to a lot of these events.
Yeah.
So to break that down a little bit, the big service in the world is Twitch, which is a video game streaming platform. I can't even remember the stats last time I looked, but it's like, I think last time I checked, it was like 3 or 4% of overall internet traffic was Twitch or something
Yeah.
like that. It was mental. Like I was surprised by it. So yeah, you stream out on Twitch.
Yeah.
Every event.
Yeah.
Like, what goes into that?
So we have, that was like probably the biggest learning curve for us. Like running a tournament, like running like the games and getting people to play the games and making sure people are there. Like that stuff's all good. That's like, at least like the thing with that is that once it's done, it's done. Nothing changes. With streaming, you plug something in and it works on the Friday, and you come back on the Saturday and it's not working, but nothing's been unplugged.
Yeah.
So like that's the biggest learning curve I think for a lot of communities at the moment, and for us we're kind of lucky. So Sol, he is our stream guru. He like learned everything he could. So we just pretty much based what we do off of a guy from New York. His name's Spooky. He is the original fighting game streamer. So if anyone wants to know anything about original like fighting game streams, look up Spooky SP00KY.
Real quick, there's actually a I don't know if you've actually seen it. No Clip. The
Oh,
YouTube
yes,
channel
yeah,
actually
yeah.
did a documentary on
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Highly recommend it. Go check it out.
Yeah.
It's just
So
Really good.
Sol messaged him, I think way back in 2013, and just asked him, "Oh, what equipment do you use? You know, what do we need?" And he sent back this list, and obviously at the time we couldn't afford like.
Yeah,
stuff.
because it's pretty pricey, man. Like
Yeah.
if you're, I think the big thing that people don't realize, whether they attend these events or not, when you're streaming outside of your bedroom, you're
Yeah.
paying for the internet.
Yeah.
And the internet at these places, you're obviously in hotels and stuff.
Yeah.
If anyone stayed at a hotel,
Oh,
they know how
bro.
much they're paying for. It's
There's-
like triple easy.
There's one place, I'm not going to say where, but man, they were trying to charge us $500 per 250 megabytes.
Whoa.
Yeah.
You definitely didn't take that venue.
No way.
Holy
No way.
crap. That is insane.
Yeah, so
If you want to make money, get into
you
get a hotel.
ISP, get a hotel
Yeah.
and sort the internet.
Okay, yeah. Like I find it fascinating that how big Twitch and video game streaming is, yet it's still somewhat of a niche. Like
Yep.
you have all these streamers, and I don't think they quite realize how their technical knowledge.
Yeah.
Like also like with you guys, right? Like Sol, you said he's like the stream guy at your events. Like I see him trucking away in the corner. He's like one of those,
Yeah.
old wizards. It's
Yeah,
like
yeah.
aged, but he knows his shit really
Yeah,
well.
yeah.
It's kind of like sound engineers
Yeah,
at dive bars.
yeah.
They're right out the back in the dark. They don't want to be talked
Yeah,
to,
yeah.
but they do their
Like
shit
nothing's
really well.
there's like nothing's marked, but he knows that if he pushes that
Yeah,
lever,
exactly.
then
Exactly
everything.
right.
Yeah.
Like I kind of feel just people don't quite recognize how insane. I feel like you could like push that off and just sell your services, right?
Well,
Like,
that was something we
yeah.
thought about, but then we just realized like we'd need more equipment than what we have. Like
Yeah,
we could probably live stream like small stuff, but nothing like really big.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's crazy how much goes into events. So you're how many months out from your date
Yeah.
are you planning?
So
2 or 3 months?
Nah, I've the last 2 years I've given myself 9 months
Oh, yeah.
from just because I used to do it like month by month.
Ooh. Well, I mean, you did a pretty good job. Yeah, I know that.
Because I like I was saying, I was a player first. I'm not actually like I was never an event organizer. trained
Yeah,
guy.
quick thing I got to chime in on there. I feel like I would much rather a person that's learned it through trial and error, that's come from that background,
Yeah.
completely understands it, than coming from a traditional, you did
Yeah.
the 3 years, you've got a degree in event management
Yeah.
from wherever. I'd much rather put my trust in the person that
Yeah, it
knows
was,
their background, knows their roots and history,
yeah,
than that person. Just simply because, end of the day, you know where their heart lies,
Yeah.
which is in the right place, and there's no kind of blame.
yeah,
Because I feel like with you guys, you've done the old hustle mentality.
Yeah, yeah.
You've worked your way up through kind of, the small side rooms to the main rooms of hotels, and then now you're just packing out. How many people were at your last event?
we had, I don't know, because I only printed off, and that's like something that I need to start doing now, is like getting like a clicker to count people that
Oh,
walk in.
right. Yeah,
so
yeah.
so we had 180 competitor passes but then I printed off 200 casual passes, and they were all gone. But there were people who were still coming that, well, we couldn't give them a pass because I didn't.
Oh, yeah, you ran out.
Yeah,
Okay.
so I like,
A couple hundred.
yeah,
So
and I could have, but when I did, I wasn't expecting that
Yeah,
many people
yeah,
to
yeah.
come.
And that was your end of the year event, nationals,
Yeah, yeah.
which is touted as if you want to prove your worth in New Zealand, you
Yeah.
attend this event
Yeah.
and you win your game, right?
Yeah.
Have we? I don't even know if we mentioned the name of it.
Oh no, Southern
Yeah.
Cross Up.
So Southern Cross Up
Yeah.
is New Zealand's national fighting game tournament.
Yeah.
And yeah, do you roughly hold it around October?
Yeah, the first
Every year?
weekend of October.
Yeah. And the quick thing I want to touch on, which I guess is like relatable in a more general sense, is our Street Fighter champion.
Oh yeah.
So
So Ghost Chips. This is
this is gaming
his
name.
gaming name.
handle.
If you guys know the ad, then you understand the reference,
yeah.
which I did not for the first year that he was. So his name's Regan Kelly. He's young. He's very young. He's only just turned 18 at the end of last year.
Yeah.
So he turned up, and I kept yelling out, "Where's Ghost Chips?" And everyone kept laughing, and I never understood the reference for the longest time.
Yeah.
He started playing Street Fighter 5 because he was playing Street Fighter 2 with his dad on the Xbox when it first came, like when they re-released the anthology things that they do.
Yeah.
And then he started beating his dad, and his dad didn't want to play with him anymore. So,
Yeah.
so then he did the natural progression as let's go online and let's find people.
Try and just get better and better and better.
Yeah.
He's won nationals 3 times in a row.
Yeah, 3 times.
So he's won nationals 3 times in a row, and I don't know how many events he won back to back to back, but he was just for a solid 2 years.
Yeah, he's only lost one event that he's been to.
Yeah.
In New Zealand.
So we have this 18-year-old kid. Well, at the time, right, it would have been 16, 17.
Yeah.
Beating everyone in New Zealand.
Yeah.
How have you had a chat? How does it operate in his head? Like, why? How does it work?
It's one of those things where he's come into something that he just finds completely fascinating, and when you really like something, you just want to know everything about it. Like every single thing you can know.
It's essentially like a lifestyle, right?
Yeah.
It's not a hobby.
No,
it's a lifestyle.
So he'll be doing his schoolwork, he'll be doing everything else, and as soon as that's all done, or even while he's doing that, he's learning stuff.
Yeah.
He's just constantly like just absorbing knowledge, just because he enjoys it.
Yeah, the reason why I wanted to point that out is because last year I was part of a group that travelled to Chicago with him for Combo Breaker, which he ended up placing. How many people played in that tournament?
Right. It's like 3,000 people.
Yeah, so he ended up placing, was it 49th?
Yeah.
Roughly around there, which is insane because I think that was his first international event.
Yeah, outside of Australia, New Zealand.
Outside of Australia. And that kid, man, like, we're in Chicago. It was out, like, kind of the west side of Chicago, I'm pretty sure, in the middle of nowhere. So he just used every waking hour to just play games. Like, I think on the Saturday night, I think he was out, and then he just played overnight.
Yeah.
He just played everyone. And granted, these are the professional players he and us to look up to, right? So it just makes sense. But I always find it fascinating with him that, he was so young, and what he's achieving is just, to compare it, I guess, is like, what sporting person would you compare that to?
Oh, it's kind of hard because I don't want to make a big call. But
He's done a lot, though.
It's or like you could say, man,
that is actually a hard one. Yeah.
No, there are like 2 people I could think of. One of them being LeBron James, young, straight out of high school, straight to, like.
Right. Yeah.
And then just like him, like really good, while he's young, everyone can see he's really good, and he's proven that point. Like he's just like, good, continuously getting better. Like he's just it's just amazing, the skill level.
Because last time I had a chat to him, I think he's progressing into uni, right?
Yep.
So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out for him. Having to juggle uni, having to juggle, having done it all essentially, juggling Street Fighter and fighting games. I just find it fascinating that those types of people will exist in this space, but won't ever get the recognition, as an All Black or as a All White.
Yeah.
Right. I guess the question to you is like, what needs to be done for that to change? It's a bit of it's a hard question to unpack.
Yeah.
But
Well,
what do you personally think?
Like, I've got some ideas, but I think, the first step would be like, but this is like going outside of the game, outside of
totally.
gaming. So it'd be like normalizing gaming.
Yeah.
Is probably the first step, in my opinion, for any esport to do well.
Yeah.
Is to not have it like be this thing. It's like when you talk about esport as like this weird like thing that nobody
it's just
does.
like another language, right?
Yeah.
When you start rattling off about it, I feel like because in the Australian space you have things like IEM, which is Intel Extreme Masters. It's like a big event for Counter Strike, which is like easily the esports title at the moment.
Yeah.
And then you have another event in the middle of the year called Melbourne Esports Open, which is kind of just like a festival of esports, right? That's what I want to see here.
Yeah.
I think once we make the switch from what it is now to like having that government support, and whether it's financially backing events for the sake of esports, I think there have been a few gaming events. I don't know if they were backed by like council boards and stuff like that, but like Digital Nations was a big one out of Vector Arena a couple of years ago. I felt like that was pretty cool. Obviously, it didn't have legs to stand.
It was, from what I heard, because we were
you actually showcased there, right?
Yeah, we were at both of them actually. The first one, we were there with Mad Cats, who are a peripheral company for third party, like they do keyboards, mouse pads, and they're the leading arcade stick manufacturer at the time.
Yeah.
And we ran a tournament in conjunction with them to give away the latest batch of Mad Cat sticks that they brought out. So arcade sticks, which are the old joystick and 6 buttons for people who are wondering when I'm saying sticks.
We didn't even actually cover that.
Yeah. So when those are coming out, so we were at the first one, and that was cool. It was real big. It was like there was a lot of tech there, and it felt kind of like, to me, I was like, sweet, this is like a cool direction that it's heading in.
It's kind of like a mini E3.
Yeah.
In a sense. So E3, what is it? Electronic Entertainment Expo.
Yeah.
Which, all the games are showcased.
Yeah.
No, I thought it was pretty cool. I don't know. Yeah, it just kind of fizzled off.
And then the second year, it wasn't as big, and it was kind of small. It felt kind of like half-assed. Like they just half-assed it.
Okay.
But I heard, that fuck it, it's not around anymore. The owner sold it to a marketing company.
Oh, okay.
And
I've never heard of this.
And then the marketing company just kind of just assumed that we'll just do this and people will turn up. But it was like nah, bro.
Oh yeah, actually, it's kind of crazy that you say that. I feel that in those types of scenarios, it's the clear example is just you're not in touch with the culture, right?
Yeah.
And I say this to everyone: the gaming culture is, if you want to be involved, just know your roots, man.
Yeah.
Know who's been in the space, who's the key heads, who's been doing it longer than you. Clear yourself up like that, introduce yourself to them, figure out kind of what you want to do, and then talk with those people. That's how I feel like it should be approached. Or else you're coming into a space where you're kind of just looked at as like, who's this arsehole, right?
Yeah.
Like, and you're kind of just strong-arming your way into a space, whether it's like money-driven or you just think you're hot shit. Just don't do that, because once you do that in a gaming crowd and you're painted like that, you are not changing that. I do not care how many millions of dollars you put up for a prize pool, how big your stage is, how many lights you have, this and that. You're not changing that, which at the moment, I don't think a lot of people are taking that approach. Is that right in saying that?
Yeah,
I just feel like
you just hit the nail on
the
the you just hit the nail on the head about what we were talking about earlier. But like, that's pretty much.
Yeah, like anything. You jumped into music. If I personally don't know the culture of what I'm stepping into, I just feel like an arsehole.
Yeah.
And who likes feeling like an arsehole, right?
Rich guys.
yeah, that's true. But yeah, I always find it fascinating when someone comes into the space and then they're quickly jumping out 6 to 12 months later and they don't know why.
Yeah.
When it can be remedied
Easily
in under a minute talk, right? Okay, that leads me into the next bit, where you yourself, you have Standing Fierce, you have your crew that you roll with every event. It's very tight knit.
Yeah.
The quality of events is for a New Zealand crew doing it, and how small it is.
Yeah.
The output insanely high quality. What do you want to do in the future? Where, like, you have 2020 planned.
Yeah.
But obviously you genuinely think you project a business.
Yeah.
Like 5 years
yeah.
out. Like, what in 5 years? What will Standing Fierce? What do you want it to be?
I guess the biggest thing for me with Standing Fierce is I just kind of want it. Oh my god, sorry. Thought I muted that. The biggest thing for me is I just want the community to grow, but I also want the community to be accepted into the wider New Zealand public.
Yeah.
You know, so I want it to be a thing that people like, so people can be like, oh, I'm gonna go to this fighting game tournament in the weekend.
Yeah.
You know, like it's like a natural progression thing, but that's like a very, very long term goal. 5 years from now, I just want more international recognition for our players. Is the biggest thing for me. Which
How
has
does
always
that
been.
work?
So like, the more like, at the moment Australia, you know, is like our closest international rival. So the Australian scene has finally, in the last maybe 2 to 3 years, like really taken notice of us, thanks in part to Ghost Chips doing so well, and all of the live streaming that we do with all of our tournaments. Because I didn't realize that Australians always watched our stuff until.
Yeah, that's the cool thing. So I've been to a fair few Australian events now because just working them, whatever.
Yep.
It's very cool. Like, I'll be wearing, Standing Fierce t-shirt.
Yeah.
And it's just cool to see everyone's just so hyped on the brand.
Yeah.
And like there's that brand loyalty.
Mm.
And I guess it's part and parcel, like Australians supporting New Zealanders,
New
Zealanders supporting Australians, because like, if
That's
you prop
us.
everyone out,
Yeah.
if you prop everyone up,
Yep.
you just, the whole region's
Exactly.
going to elevate, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I've always found that cool. It's just like you'll have just like a small pool of Australian players rocking
Yep.
Standing Fierce
Yeah.
merch at events, and they'll know kind of what we're about because they exist in the internet sphere.
Yeah,
and, like
yeah.
know kind of how we work and
Yeah.
operate, and like a lot of them have travelled from Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, Perth to New Zealand events, right?
Yeah, and that's cool. That's just kind of like, for me, I just see that as growth, just because because at the moment they are better, but that's just because of population size. They have a lot more better players than we do, but that's just because they got a bigger population. But if their better players are coming here, playing us, and we're beating them, then we must be doing something right. And then if we can consistently beat the Australian players, when they go to like Malaysia or Japan, Thailand, Australia, and then they're like, oh, these guys from New Zealand, have you heard of them? Then we have Americans and Japanese players are like, oh, you guys.
Yeah, I've heard of you,
Yeah.
type of thing, and want to travel out to New Zealand, which is damn cool because there's been a few instances where that's happened, right? And the big one was, correct me if I'm wrong, it was the New Japan wrestler that came over.
Oh, Kenny Omega.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
What happened there?
So he was over for a show that they were doing over in the North Shore, but he's a big Street Fighter, Street Fighter. That's a fighting game fanatic.
Yeah.
And he just put a tweet out, and I just reached out to him, and I was like, bro, I can put something on if you're keen, and then like in the space of like 3 hours, I like
set it up,
and
through.
I was not expecting the amount of people to turn up that did.
Yeah, that was crazy. I remember you putting the tweet out,
Yeah.
And then just photos started flooding through. Everyone was just posing with
Yeah,
Kenny Omega.
it was.
Yeah.
Oh, and it was cool though because he played everybody. Like,
Yeah.
he played everybody, and like it was just kind of like a cool thing to see, like fighting games transcending this like weird.
Yeah, which I feel like you don't see here locally. You don't see in a genuine sense.
Yeah, like there was like like there was no like like I didn't make people pay to go and see him. I just told them to
Just rock up.
just turn up, and like if they want to play. If they don't, all good. Hang around, take a photo, whatever.
Yeah. Okay, I think we'll wrap this one up. Is there any shout outs? Or where can we find Standing Fierce? What would we be doing?
Standingfierce.com is like the website. It's pretty much got all details for our events, and it has links to our live streams. Standing Fierce on Facebook as well. It's pretty much just standingfierce.com, and then that'll take you everywhere.
Sweet. And gotta mention, don't be afraid to get amongst.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh yeah.
Like that is the key thing.
Yeah.
Like no one's
good from the start.
Yeah, you're gonna get thrashed, but just
You'll
learn
lose
from it.
You'll lose every single time.
Yeah.
But don't take it to heart. They're not beating you. Like, leave your ego at home is the biggest thing I can say.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, just get amongst. If you're ever on in their socials, just say hi, say what game you play, and they'll direct you.
Yeah, we're not like I'm like the most corporate guy on the team. So, and I'm like nowhere near corporate. So if you just want to talk, well, it's all good.
Sweet, that's us.
Thank you.